What if being small was the ultimate advantage? What if weakness itself forged the sharpest kind of strength? Some of the world's tiniest nations, Israel, Finland, Singapore, Estonia, and others, stand surrounded by giants. They don't have vast oceans of manpower or infinite budgets. What they have is something far rarer: clarity, the cold realization that losing once might mean disappearing forever. That awareness changes everything. It turns defense into obsession, strategy into art, and soldiers into innovators. When survival isn't optional, complacency dies first. For these nations, necessity isn't a buzzword, it's oxygen. Small nations' armies are often built on improvisation, with tactics which rewrite how small forces fight giants. They turn its vulnerability into an engineering blueprint for resilience and transform fear into fuel. But here's the first paradox. Fear alone doesn't create brilliance. It can also paralyze. What separates innovation from panic is culture. Small nations that thrive don't just fight harder. They think differently. They treat every setback as a laboratory. Every mistake is a prototype. While superpowers drown in resources and politics, the small warrior has no such luxury. Every decision must work. Every soldier counts. Every failure costs a future. And that's what makes their ingenuity so hauntingly efficient and so human. Because in a world built on dominance, the small don't survive by strength. They survive by imagination. Every empire believes power comes from abundance, from bigger budgets, larger armies, longer supply chains. But small nations learn the opposite lesson. Constraint isn't a curse, it's a catalyst. When your survival depends on doing more with less, creativity stops being optional. It becomes doctrine. Take Israel's Unit 8200, the birthplace of many of the world's top cybersecurity startups. With limited funding and surrounded by enemies, young engineers were told, if the tools don't exist, build them. Out of that necessity came some of the most advanced digital defense systems ever designed, and later, a nation of tech entrepreneurs. In Finland, where winter can freeze entire armies, innovation was born in the snow. During the Winter War, Finnish soldiers hacked together skis, camouflage, and mobile tactics that humiliated a force 10 times their size. Today, Finland still runs its defense like an open-source project. Every citizen a potential contributor, every conscript a potential coder. Singapore, with barely 5 million people and no natural resources, built a military like a startup, automated, data-driven, and relentlessly pragmatic. From AI-driven logistics to cyber defense academies, it treats efficiency as an existential art form. And then there's Estonia, a digital microstate that turned a Russian cyber attack into a revolution. Instead of building walls, it built code. Its digital conscription model now trains citizens as cyber defenders, not soldiers. And here's the next paradox. While superpowers hesitate, weighed down by politics, cost, and caution, small nations prototype at the speed of survival. For them, failure is fast, lessons are instant, and innovation isn't an experiment. It's a reflex. Fear is a terrible teacher, but an exceptional motivator. For small nations, fear isn't a moment, it's a mindset. Living under constant threat creates a collective vigilance that no budget can buy. In psychology, this is called adaptive anxiety, the idea that moderate, continuous pressure sustains alertness and drives creativity. A 2022 RAND study on innovation in high-threat environments found that nations under chronic security pressure develop faster feedback loops, higher tolerance for risk, and tighter civilian-military collaboration. Fear, when institutionalized properly, becomes a system of awareness. Israel once ran a military hackathon just 48 hours after a real cyber attack on one of its banks. Not to assign blame, but to learn faster. The competition produced 3 working defense prototypes before the investigation even concluded. In Finland, school children grow up with nationwide 72-hour resilience drills, not out of fear but familiarity. Singapore's Defense Science and Technology Agency runs public red team challenges that invite civilians to break its own systems, turning insecurity into a national sport. And in Estonia, after the massive 2007 cyber attacks that crippled banks and ministries, the nation didn't retreat. It reinvented itself. Within a year, Tallinn founded the NATO Cooperative Cyber Defense Center of Excellence, turning its trauma into expertise. Today, every Estonian citizen carries a digital ID, and government data is mirrored abroad in so-called data embassies. What began as a national humiliation became a masterclass in digital resilience, proof that a small country can turn vulnerability into infrastructure. Each of these examples shows the same paradox. Fear, when harnessed deliberately, stops being panic and becomes preparation. But the line between vigilance and obsession is thin. Studies from Cambridge and the OECD warn that prolonged security fatigue can corrode trust and democratic values. The same fear that fuels innovation can, if unbalanced, justify surveillance or conformity. So small nations walk a tightrope, weaponizing fear without letting it consume them, because paranoia can defend you, but it can also define you. If the 20th century belonged to armies, the 21st belongs to networks. Small nations survive not by centralizing power, but by distributing it. Israel's model is less a military and more a living neural network. Every citizen, from coder to reservist, is a potential node. Civilian startups feed data into defense systems. Retired officers become cybersecurity mentors. National service doubles as an incubator for innovation. According to a 2023 study by the Belfer Center at Harvard, this civil-military fusion explains Israel's unmatched defense-to-start pipeline. Finland's total defense doctrine takes the idea further. It's not just the army that trains. It's the baker, the banker, and the bus driver. Over 80% of Finnish companies participate in national resilience programs. It's Wikipedia meets West Point. Everyone contributes, everyone defends. Singapore applies the same idea to cyberspace. Its digital defense initiative turns citizens into active sensors, part of a data ecosystem that monitors threats faster than bureaucracy ever could. And Estonia again stands as the quiet pioneer. Its Volunteer Cyber Defense League is a literal open-source army. Coders, sysadmins, and hackers protecting their nation's digital borders in Slack channels instead of trenches. The lesson? Strength no longer scales by hierarchy. It scales by connection. The small nations that endure aren't the ones with the biggest weapons, but the densest networks. Because in an age of hybrid warfare, resilience is crowdsourced, and survival is a team project. Superpowers look irresistible on paper. Massive budgets, global reach, endless assets. But in practice, size can be a trap. Large militaries accumulate layers of procedure, procurement cycles measured in years, and political constraints that make rapid change almost impossible. Bureaucracy doesn't just slow decisions. It creates structural blind spots where promising ideas die of delay. Recent defense innovation research argues exactly that. Big organizations often outsource risk to private contractors because their internal processes can't absorb fast, iterative failure. Contrast that with the small state. Agility is baked into survival. When every platform, vehicle, or software patch could decide whether your country endures, you learn to iterate like a startup. Quick prototypes, field trials, and ruthless pruning of what doesn't work. Israel's rapid cycle development and Finland's tactical experimentation aren't anomalies. They're adaptive responses to existential constraints. The RAND report on defense innovation documents how leaner organizations use faster feedback loops and closer civil-military integration to convert scarcity into advantage. Why do big nations funnel so much innovation to industry partners? Because private firms can run skunkworks away from procurement glare, scaling experimental tech without congressional life cycles or inter-service turf wars. But that outsourcing creates a second-order problem, dependence. When strategic know-how lives primarily outside the state, the government's ability to absorb, direct, and ethically govern that technology at speed diminishes. The result is again a paradox. The richest militaries often pay the most to buy back agility from firms that remain more nimble than the bureaucracies that commission them. A slightly absurd example comes from the United States in 2019, after the Pentagon spent nearly $10 billion in 5 years trying to build a single unified cloud system. JEDI, the project was canceled before it ever launched, due to interdepartmental feuds, lawsuits, and shifting political winds. By the time the decision was reversed, most of the underlying technology was already outdated. In other words, where small nations turn crises into catalysts, superpowers can turn opportunities into committees. It's a reminder that scale can sometimes breed paralysis, not power. So is the future of warfare less about tanks and more about adaptability? Increasingly, yes. Hybrid conflicts reward those who can reconfigure doctrine the fastest, integrate sensors, and pivot command models on the fly. Small states aren't merely improvising. They're inventing organizational forms that scale adaptability rather than size. In a world where disruption is constant, speed and learning outperform mass more often than history might suggest. The counterintuitive takeaway: when power becomes a default resource, creativity atrophies. The very institutions built to protect a nation can become the single biggest strategic threat, because they make it harder to change when change is what saves you. To become agile, nations, like organizations, must first unlearn their comfort with stability. Agility begins not with tools but with doctrine, a willingness to institutionalize uncertainty. The playbook of the modern small state shows that resilience isn't achieved by predicting every threat, but by rehearsing how to respond when prediction fails. That means transforming the military-industrial complex from a pyramid into a network. Flatter hierarchies, shorter approval chains, and cross-domain teams that think and act in feedback cycles rather than budget years. In practice, becoming agile demands three deep shifts: cultural, structural, and procedural. First, cultural agility, rewarding iteration over perfection. Traditional defense culture prizes certainty, clear plans, stable chains of command, and success measured by absence of failure. But agility requires the opposite: rapid prototyping, visible mistakes, and continuous learning. Israel's Unit 8200 and Estonia's Cyber Defense League embody this mindset, cultivating engineers and reservists who experiment in peacetime as if in conflict, using after-action reviews and hackathons as engines of improvement. This culture flips the moral weight of error. Failing early is no longer a scandal but a safeguard. Second, structural agility, decentralizing capability without losing coherence. Large power centralized because control promises security. Yet in a fluid threat landscape, distributed authority outpaces bureaucracy. Estonia's X-Road architecture and NATO's federated cyber commands both show how modular design and shared standards can allow local units to act autonomously while remaining interoperable. Agility at scale depends on building systems that can self-heal, not wait for top-down permission. Third, procedural agility, turning policy into software. Modern defense isn't just about deploying weapons faster. It's about codifying adaptability. When procedures become programmable, rules evolve at machine speed. Singapore's Defense Science and Technology Agency automates red teaming cycles, letting regulations evolve dynamically with each test. The military version of DevOps, sometimes called Secretary Ops or Mil Ops, turns command pipelines into living systems, continuously integrating intelligent logistics and feedback. To achieve this, nations must treat governance as a design problem. Bureaucratic inertia can't be reformed away by slogans. It must be engineered out of existence. Agile states use simulation environments to test policy like software updates, running sandbox environments where doctrines, communication protocols, and alliances can be stress-tested before crises do it for real. The result isn't chaos but controlled adaptability, learning faster than the environment changes. The hardest part, however, is psychological. Power conditions institutions to believe they have time. Agility begins with admitting they don't. In a digital battle space where milliseconds decide outcomes, the next frontier isn't about who owns the biggest arsenal, but who can reconfigure identity, intelligence, and intent at speed. The future agile state behaves less like a fortress and more like a neural network, sensing, adapting, and evolving with every signal it receives. And perhaps that's a paradox of scale itself. Small nations don't become agile by choice. They become agile by necessity. Constraint breeds clarity. Exposure breeds speed. Where superpowers plan, small states practice. In the end, the fight for survival can be the best teacher of innovation. The battlefield is already moving into code, signals, and minds. Small nations scored early wins here precisely because digital domains compress time and lower physical thresholds to entry. Estonia's response to early cyber attacks shows how a small state can translate crisis into lasting capability. NATO's analysis of hybrid threats warns that the edge now belongs to those who control data, detection, and narrative simultaneously. Could small nations dominate cyber conflict the way tiny guerrilla forces once dominated forests and cities? The architecture is similar. Decentralized teams, local knowledge, high adaptability, and a willingness to use asymmetric tools. Nations that treat citizens as sensors and coders, training large pools of digital talent, and institutionalizing rapid incident response cycles create a force multiplier that physical scale cannot easily counter. NATO's CCDCOE documents how cyber forces across allied small states have evolved into specialized network capabilities that punch above their weight. But what about AI? There's a dual possibility. On one hand, AI tools and cloud platforms can level some technical barriers, enabling small states to deploy sophisticated detection, predictive defense, and automated playbooks faster than ever. Early literature on AI and cybersecurity suggests these tools can reduce skill gaps and speed response times, offering a tangible advantage to nations that integrate them quickly. On the other hand, AI at scale favors those who control the data and compute clouds. If large powers monopolize training datasets and cutting-edge architectures, they can weaponize AI in ways that extend their dominance. The competitive space will therefore hinge less on raw algorithms and more on data governance, coalition access, and distributed training networks. Ultimately, the new terrain rewards those who master three things at once: sensor networks that see fast, AI systems that learn faster, and social architectures that turn citizens into active defenders. In the cloud age, winning is less about who fires the first shot than about who rewrites the map of attention, trust, and truth. Maybe the greatest lesson from small nations is not about warfare or technology, but about mindset. Constraint is not a punishment. It's a teacher. It forces clarity, urgency, and empathy. When resources are scarce, every idea, every person, every moment must count. That is where true innovation begins, not from abundance, but from necessity, sharpened by fear and guided by hope. For individuals, the parallel is striking. We all live under constraint, time, energy, attention. The art is not to wish for more, but to do more with less, to adapt faster than circumstance, to find freedom inside limits. But there's a last paradox for now. When safety finally arrives, creativity often fades. Nations that survive their crises, like people who overcome struggle, risk losing the fire that made them inventive. Comfort sedates curiosity. Security dulls imagination. So the final question isn't how to avoid constraint. It's how to carry its discipline into times of peace and success. Because being small, a small country, a small team, a single person isn't a weakness. It's a reminder that greatness has never been about size. It's been about attention, intention, and imagination under pressure.